Welcome to this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have Sami Hero. He's a Stevie Award-winning executive who has led transformational growth across startups, scale-ups, and billion-dollar corporations as CMO, CRO, and COO. Welcome to the show, Sami.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here.
You are welcome. Welcome to the show. Welcome to India in this online form. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people across the globe will benefit from what we are going to talk right now. We'll talk about mastering growth analytics. But before this, let's understand a bit about your journey, your background, so that listeners know better who they are listening to.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I have a long history with analytics and sales and marketing around the world. So I was born and went to school in Finland, and then I lived in Sweden and in France, a little bit in UK and Canada, US, and for the last 6 years I've been back in Finland. I was lured back here for a scale up to be a CEO of a scale up called Happy or Not, and then after the pandemic, we did some changes there. And then I started a consulting business focusing on growth strategies and helping different companies around the world figure out how to grow or transform their business to better suit in the current AI world, so to speak.
Right, Sami. Now, in terms of when we talk of, businesses, scaling, growing up, and analytics, a lot of times nowadays, a lot of people have these analytics in hand. They have access to all these analytics. So why is it a problem in terms of for the growth? Why doesn't it happen for them that they are able to scale up? Why, in spite of having all the analytics in hand, they are not able to use it? Where is the problem? Are they not brilliant minds, or is it that they are very lazy? How does it work? Help us understand. It's like living by the side of the river, but being thirsty all the time.
Yeah, no, there are a couple of challenges that I've seen in the past, and I continue seeing it still. So one of the challenges is that we have all the data in the world and analytics in the world in our hands, but we don't actually change the way we do business based on it. So it essentially just becomes reporting. So in a way, when we see signals coming from the data, whether it's like consumer behavioral data or some changes in economy, we just kind of put our head in the sand, and it's like, well, we've always done it this way, so let's continue doing it, and kind of, hoping for the better. And hope is never a good strategy. So what you really should be doing is to look at all of this data and analytics and the signals that are coming from markets and actively figure out, like, how can we do things differently? How can we change? How can we test some things? And the other thing that I've seen as well is in some cases is this thing called confirmation bias. I'm pretty sure you're familiar with it, which is sometimes the we have in the US, we used to call the HIPPO, which was the highest paid person's opinion, comes in and essentially has already decided what he or she is going to do, and then just wants analytics to support the decision. So kind of finding the data that supports the already kind of confirmed way of doing things. So these tend to be the couple of things which are usually slowing down or hindering the potential growth based on the numbers and data we see.
Right. So where do these companies generally go wrong? Especially if you look at, it's the time when there are a lot of startups and all, and they have a particular, good amount of growth. They try to grow a bit fast in their own, but when they get the money, so till that time, the vision was good, the scaling process was good, and everything was good. Once they get that money, you call it Series A, you get the money, and afterwards the downfall begins. Why is it so? Is it again? How can you be suddenly going lazy, or how can you suddenly go wrong in your vision? Is there Is there a particular mistakes that they are making, or they are too big? Golf is a good thing, or is it that they become too busy in playing golf and trying to just network and make new connections, and the business goes for a toss? How does it work?
Yeah, no, it's so I'll tell one example that happened in the scale up that I came to run. Essentially, was that when we had Series A and we had fair amount of money, we ended up expanding, scaling up our engineering and our sales organization faster than our marketing could generate demand for the product. So we essentially increased our burn rate significantly without increasing revenue accordingly, because cost goes up, but the sales don't go up accordingly. So our investment strategy wasn't entirely aligned with the product market fit and the market situation, and it didn't help that our venture owners also kept on pushing us. But that was kind of one story. We recovered. We course corrected pretty quickly, and we learned from that. The other funny thing that happened was, it was actually an Indian startup. I know that when they got a lot of venture money in the virtual event space, and as they had millions and millions in the bank, their chief marketing officer decided to throw a big party at the Cannes Film Festival, like a physical event. And I was scratching my head, is that what does that have to do with anything virtual? And yes, Cannes is kind of a really cool and best known event for film festivals in the world, but still. So it can also happen that sometimes when you have a lot of money to spend on for growth, you forget to focus. The key is still to, like what you said, is you have a vision, you have your ideal customer profile, you know where you're going, what you should reach out. So in fact, you should scale the things that tend to work, and then kind of I would say somewhat cautiously with A/B testing or multivariate testing, you start expanding the focus and see which elements are working the best, instead of just spray and pray, so to speak. And of course, it's when like I've been practically always working in the B2B space. So business to business is different from business to consumers. So in B2C, you throw out coupons and celebrity endorsements and things like that. You sell more sneakers because you have a great sponsor. But in B2B, nowadays, I would say, borderline insane amount of touches with the prospects. I just read recently an analysis where for over $100,000 annual contract value deals, you need nearly 1,000 impressions for your target account and nearly 100 touches before you actually even get to have a decent conversations. So that also requires money, but you need to be quite clever about how you spend it. So
Right.
in fact, if you have money to grow, be clever about it, right?
Be clever about it. But you see, let's look at that situation. You got the money, and now you come back with a new zeal that you need to grow the company. Several times you hire a few people who are supposed to be, part of that main team. Is it about that hiring process that you bring in the wrong sort of people and they are supposed to be the specialists? Until now, only the founders and the close people were leading it and everything was correctly. That you brought in those people, you think they are the leaders, they have a good success record, but suddenly this is where the culture is not correct. Maybe they are trying to find their feet and they suddenly become too aggressive because there is a lot of money. And since you don't want to question them too much, you give them a free hand and they take decisions like the ones you talked about. So how does that work? How do you as a founder ensure that you are not meddling in those experts' affairs, but at the same time keeping the right type of check, also not losing or not leaving the vision behind, the customer behind? How does one do that?
Yeah, there's this is a really interesting topic, and I would I would actually recommend everybody, if you're in the startup world, to look at what Jason has been writing on the SaaStr, so the SaaStr.com, about this particular topic, because you're absolutely right. Hiring, particularly from kind of the seed or angel funding to seed, and then you're looking at the growth into Series A and onwards, that hiring is going to be super critical. And there are multiple ways of going wrong, and multiple ways of also trying to go right. But one of the ways of kind of one of the red flags I would see is that you go and hire somebody from a larger organization who's already done it several times. Then the question is like, why would this person come again to do it yet again? And are they just going to repeat the playbook exactly as they are used to doing it in the past? So that's one thing to look at, is like, are they really motivated and able and willing to kind of step down in a sense, and to boost it. There are obviously a lot of people who are excited about the growth phase in startups, and they like to go kind of back, get the options, exit, and do this several times until they can, retire or do whatever. The other thing, which is sometimes, which I've seen firsthand as well, which is a little bit challenging, is that when you're a small organization and then you hire somebody like a big name from a big corporation, like let's say you operate in a B2B space. So you say, I'm going to go hire somebody from, Adobe or ServiceNow or SAP or Microsoft or some company like that, because obviously they know how this thing is done. But you need to be super careful about the cultural aspect and the expectations with the candidates or people coming from those huge companies, because sometimes they're used to having a lot of money to spend, like the Cannes event, or they expect to have a lot of consultants and teams helping you execute on the strategy. They have a good thinking and a great strategies, but they might not be willing to kind of get their hands dirty and again, like, just step down and start doing the work. So I would say that in most cases, when you're looking at in that growth phase, you're looking at various people. It's super important to look at the attitude of the individuals, not necessarily look at if they're coming, like, let's say if you are in, let's say, retail IT, for instance. I wouldn't necessarily hire somebody from IT to come in. I would maybe hire somebody from the retail side of things, because they actually have a buyer understanding and the customer and the prospect understanding. And if they have a great attitude, you can teach them everything else. So I think it's kind of important to be, or actually very important to be, very open-minded about the types of candidates you want to bring in, based on, their, obviously they have to have the basic skills required, but after that, it's you can teach most skills if the person is has a growth mindset.
Right. And so let's talk about the data here. Growth analytics, all the analytics that you have. Earlier also you were using. Now you have money, so you employ better tools, better analytics for yourself. How do you then bring this analytics into the picture? Your team might be doing the way things they might be doing, right or wrong, but you are keeping also an eye, and the numbers won't lie. How do you read those numbers? How do you employ those numbers on the ground? Should you use it only, as you talked about, confirmation bias, or should you look at the growth instincts that of a founder, the way you have been running things? How should one look at the tools, the data that is available to you with the new position that you have got?
Yeah, no, I think the key is to have a solid data set that supports your primary objectives. And this is like, I'm a big fan of the OKR, the objectives and key results model. But I'm also a huge fan of having very, very few objectives, especially early on in the startups. Is that ideally you'll have 3 objectives for the entire company, which could be something like the total revenue, which we are attaining, the number of new logos, for instance, coming in, and the net retention revenue typically is important. So not only do you sign up new accounts, but you also keep them and grow them, type of thing. And then after that, you start looking at kind of breaking it down into the key results. Is that which are the leading indicators that are driving the results into those numbers. Like new logos, you need to start looking at things is that, how is marketing bringing new names into the pipeline, kind of top of the funnel, and how are we taking it through the pipeline into the deals, and how quickly are we operating those. So essentially, you try to always look at like what is the connection between whatever metric you're looking in the beginning all the way to the end, and then making sure that everybody's committed to driving those numbers together. And then finally, it's important always to just make sure that everybody understands is that we're objectively looking at the data. It's in so many meetings, I've told my team is that I've got lots of opinions, but my opinion doesn't matter because I'm not the buyer. It's only the customer's opinion at the end matters, and we're doing whatever we can to understand what the buyers, who they are. Number one, obviously figuring out the ideal customer profile, but also how do we reach them? Who are the ones who are kind of influencing the decisions? How do we communicate with them? And how much effort typically it takes to close a deal? Because then we can also build our scaling models based on the duration of the deals, the size of the deals, the volume of the deals, and close rates and so forth.
Right. So where do you come into the picture? When do you come into the picture? Is it as soon as the money comes into their bank accounts or wherever it is, or is it only when the money is squandered that you come into the picture? What is the best time for you to make that
transformational entry? That's a good question. So I've done 4 startups so far in my career, and a few corporations of different sizes. And I particularly like to tinker, build, and fix. So I kind of come in both stages. It's like somebody wants to go international, they want to expand their business, so I can help them think through their go-to-market strategies. Sometimes I've come in when there's a big transformation. We want to be more product oriented, for instance, from a traditional consulting business, or it's just that we are in trouble. I stepped in years ago in the US into a major reorganization where on my first day, I was essentially told that, welcome, and by the way, you need to cut costs by 30%. Because Bain Consulting said that when the businesses merge, you can cut 30% of the cost. So then it goes into diagnostics and figuring out what needs to happen to achieve those targets.
Wonderful. And you talk about the growth mindset and analytics. You call it a match made in heaven. Help us understand this part a bit, especially those people who have got companies to grow and to protect.
Yeah, I think just the growth mindset, it's more a human aspect of things, and there's a great book written about it, and growth versus the fixed mindset. So the growth mindset, I think, is typical when you look at people and you engage with employees in the company, and there are always hopefully a majority of people who are always looking at ways doing things differently and better. And who are wanting to test things. It's like, hey, we don't know if like, let's say whatever marketing event would work, but let's test something with a limited budget and see what kind of results we get out, and then we learn something about it. So it's that entire learning and testing and trying new things loop. It's a little bit like my golf game. So I track absolutely everything. I have sensors in my clubs. After every round, I analyze on what did I do poorly or well, and what could I do better next time around. So it's very similar to that growth mindset. But growth mindset alone isn't going to help you much if you don't have the data that tells you when something is working. So you might be looking at, let's say, you might even be looking in a factory, a plastic extrusion process with a bunch of production lines. And yes, you kind of figure out if it's working or not when you can see that the materials is coming as expected. But if you throw in sensors and analytics and AI on it, you can essentially predict on what is the optimal mix of raw materials and speed and heat and everything else you can run. And then you can try a little bit of on the edges if you can improve the process. and the system will learn using the data whether it's working or not, and then you can continuously optimize it. So that's kind of, it's like growth mindset or optimization and testing without the data it's not going to help you much. The other thing which is good now with the technology today is that we've always been able to do something called multivariate testing, but it used to be really, really difficult to understand and do the math behind it and to understand what combinations work the best. But today we have so many good tools from different companies like Adobe and others, even Google to a degree, where you can, like, for instance, advertising, you can have 6 images, 8 headlines, and 12 different copy versions, and you will run different combinations of these and figure out like which converts the best. And then that becomes the winner, and then now you do another versioning and testing on it. So the tools have become so much better today, so we can definitely leverage the underlying data, even if it's super complex.
Right. And when we talk of growth mindset, Sami, many people may understand it as unicorn mindset, and instead of growth, they start looking at this word called becoming a unicorn. Nothing wrong with that, except that, then you start running behind that. Is it a right sort of way of looking at it, becoming a unicorn, rather than looking at it as a part of a growth process and forget the growth mindset in reality, forget the vision, forget the customer, and look at only that? What do you want to tell about this, running behind this word called being a unicorn?
There's nothing wrong in setting your sights very high, right? It's that BHAG, the big, hairy, audacious goal, and I would say it's a good thing. Like if you have a product market fit and you have great vision and you believe in what you're doing, putting your sight at the unicorn level is absolutely fine. But at the same time, you need to kind of peel the onion a little bit deeper and look at what are the subsequent steps that need to happen. You need to hit 1 million in ARR, which is kind of the first big hurdle for startups. Then the next one is probably in the 5 and 10 million range, where you start signing Series A and so forth. And if you have, let's say your net retention rate is like, let's say 140%, you start growing post that 10 million with the Series A. You can do BC and so forth, and then eventually you'll get to the unicorn level. But I think it's just like a customer journey for your buyers. I think it's important to think about what is the journey for the company, and what are those mid goals to get there. It's since I play golf, right? So there are these par fives where you should be in the hole with 5 shots, right? And so I'm always trying to dream about, like, I want to get an eagle, which would be 2 under, so get onto the hole on 3 shots, and then kind of thinking is like, where do I need to hit the next shot in order to get there? And more often than not, it doesn't quite work that way. But the kind of the goal, the dream is always there, and I'm always trying to think, especially in the course that I know well, is like, okay, where to place the ball and so forth. So it's similar in the work, is that where do we need to get at a certain point in time, so that we can take benefit of the economy, where the customers are going, where the technology trends are going, and so forth.
Wonderful. There is much to learn from you about all these things about market, growth analytics and everything else. And I'm sure a lot of people, a lot of founders, a lot of startups would like to learn more from you, about you, want to connect with you and get into that transformational growth for themselves. So what's the best way for them to connect with you?
LinkedIn is the best way to connect with me. And I believe in whether you call it paid forward or karma or anything like that, but I've always been very happy to share. So, and I'm always very happy to introduce founders. So yesterday I was talking to a founder. I introduced him to somebody who could potentially help them with go-to-market in their particular region and industry. So just connect with me. I'm happy to talk, happy to help.
Wonderful. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
No, thank you so much for inviting me.
Yeah.